DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. When people hear this name, they usually automatically think of the never-ending rebel attacks and genocide in the east, tribal fights across the whole country, the general insecurity everywhere. But the biggest of them all, the clear and obvious corruption that goes on daily without stopping in DRC. Oh, did I mention extortion? Yeah, just look at this guy. He was recording his journey in the city of Lubumbashi when this officer told him something strange. Yeah, it's clear that the DRC government is not able to properly manage this giant land. Well, at least there is one good thing that the government properly provides, which is important for any country. Yes, transportation. DRC has good transportation. A good example is the roads. Yes, good roads. These roads allow Congolese to travel everywhere freely, as you can see here. Yeah, I was lying. The roads are terrible, horrible. In some cities and around the capital, they are a bit decent, but by majority, when going from any one city in the whole country to another, well, just know that some passengers always leave their wheel at home, just in case. Oh, did I mention that road ambushes are normal? Considering that it takes almost, if not an entire day, to travel just 300 kilometers with good condition, which is very rare. I believe that's enough time for the rebels to set their traps and attack. So, if you love dirt roads while being extorted by traffic police, then this is the place to visit. But I know any decent human being wants to travel safely. So the DRC fails when it comes to roads. But don't worry, DRC has ships. Yes, ships. They are good and not bumpy like those roads, and they're by far the busiest in the DRC. But they don't reach everywhere due to DRC being an inland country. And they mostly cover only the west of DRC on the Congo River. And although DRC's water transport is one of the busiest in Africa, they are not usually what I would call comfortable, and they are really unsafe. Oh yes, trains. Yes, trains. Trains are good. DRC has rail transport, and they cover less than 5%, if not 1% of transportation. And most rail tracks are not operational, and they are not on the comfortable side. And honestly, it's better to go by road than to use rail in DRC if you value your life. So what now? Well, this brings us to the topic of this video and this channel. If roads are a no-go, and trains by far are not available everywhere, and ships are only available to one portion of DRC, then what is the best transportation system in DRC? Yes, aviation. Aviation in DRC is the best. Welcome to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the best source of transportation is one of the most dangerous in the world. As I stated earlier, road transportation, rail transportation, and maritime transportation are by far not the best and safe transport choice to take while in DRC. For people with low income in DRC, who unfortunately are the majority, they have no choice but to take those risks. But for people with a bit of cash on their hands and all foreigners, aviation is the first and only choice they choose, as it is the best in the country. So how is the best transportation choice in DRC regarded as one of the most dangerous in the world? Well, I will let it speak for itself. In DRC, air accidents and incidents are a normal occurrence. From the first ever recorded accident in April the 11th, 1929 of Eugène de Ligne's Aviator 92, all the way to Surf Air's Boeing 737-300 accident in May 5th, 2024. An estimate of 224 or more accidents and over 276 incidents have occurred in the Democratic Republic of Congo, resulting to more than 1,500 fatalities. In terms of casualties since 2010, DRC is ranked 4th in the world, with Russia, Indonesia, and Nepal ranking higher. Aviation in DRC is so unsafe to the point that the EU has marked it as one of the most dangerous and has banned all aircraft from the DRC to fly into the EU. At this point, I know that there is someone who would ask the question,
but there are countries out there that have had the same amount of accidents and incidents and fatalities, and some have even higher numbers than DRC.
Well, the answer that breaks that argument is one word: consistency. Yes, it's true that there are some countries who have higher numbers than DRC, but you will notice that almost 90% of those numbers took place before the 90s and 80s. And at average, some were due to really hard situations that were hard to overcome, like the 737 MAX 8 crashes and new pilot errors issues due to the advancement of automation in aircraft. The thing that makes aviation in DRC dangerous is the consistency of accidents and incidents and the stupid reasons behind those accidents and incidents. A perfect example is when in 2010, the 10th of August, a Phil Air Let 410 crashed and killed 20 people while on final approach because for some stupid reason, somehow and up to today, we don't know how, but someone was able to smuggle a freaking crocodile. Yes, a crocodile into the aircraft without the other passengers' knowledge. And thus, when the aircraft was on final, the crocodile decided that it was time to show its presence. When everyone saw the crocodile, they all rushed and panicked to the front of the aircraft, making its nose heavy and thus made it nosedive into the ground. Only one person survived, and he is the one that recounted the horrific events that killed 20 people. And guess what? The crocodile survived! But mob justice was quickly carried out by people after the crash. DRC not only has a lot of these types of crazy accidents, but also mysterious ones as well. The year 2007 to this day is still DRC's worst aviation year, as it had the most fatal accidents. One of them was a mysterious circumstance of an Antonov An-12 that belonged to a company called Business and Cargo. On Saturday, the 29th of September 2007, Business and Cargo's Antonov An-12 took off at Kisangani's airport heading to Goma International Airport, carrying most likely illegal mineral goods, with a crew of 7 members. After the Antonov took off and disappeared into the sky, they were never seen again. And weirdly, to this day, no investigation report has ever been released. In 2012, 5 years after the disappearance, a group of NGO explorers were exploring a forest 210 kilometers south of Kisangani when they found this wreckage. They looked pretty close to the Antonov An-12, but the place where they were found was really weird, not even close to the route to Goma. But even with this discovery, the government never made any investigation to this day. Anyways, before you go in too deep, just know that accidents like this are fairly normal in DRC. They will disappear, and after like a week, they are found in weird and catastrophic messes with everyone dead. And after being found, the government is usually not bothered to do any investigation, and usually just says,
"The aircraft is secured after takeoff and then was found 2 days later in a crash site. The cause of the crash is unknown, and we are unable to know why."
But there are times when they are forced into a corner where an accident is too great and they are forced to do an investigation. The biggest example of them is the 1996 Air Africa crash that killed around 298 people. Due to shady deals and no oversight of operation, the Antonov 32B was overloaded and failed to rotate and gain altitude on takeoff. And due to the proximity of an outdoor market to the airport, the aircraft plowed through the market, crashing people before coming to a stop. Around 298 people were killed, and likely around 500 people only got injured. Honestly, I don't want to imagine how the scene would have looked like if all of them also died. As of 2024, this accident remains not just DRC's but Africa's deadliest aviation accident. So what are the main reasons behind these accidents and incidents in DRC, and why is it that almost all of them are never investigated? Well, after my own investigation, I found 5 factors that were all connected. I was able to find these 5 factors because I was sponsored by Minutes from Disaster, a channel that goes in deep to see the chains of events that brought down many aircrafts. If you like good reconstructions of air crashes, then I recommend you to check out the channel Minutes from Disaster, link in the description. So, what are those 5 factors? Before we talk about them, we need to learn a bit about the weather in DRC. Due to DRC being located on the equator, the weather is always unpredictable and dangerous. At the equator, the sun's rays are strong, and thus a big player in weather is over-energized. His name is temperature. Temperatures at the equator are always high, especially at low altitudes. As the morning sun rises, the temperature is cold, but at noon, you would feel like you are under a blanket. Temperatures plays a big role in equator regions because it is connected to the density of the air and thermals, which is basically the rate of rising air. I don't want to bore you with a lot of specifics on equator weather, but just know that the equator plus dense forests plus hot temperature equals bad weather. In the morning, you will see clear skies far and wide. Then around noon, a big fully grown thunderstorm will be on top of you. From fair weather to low visibility in hours. From calm winds to crosswinds and gusty winds. From taking off on a nice day to cruising next to icy cold clouds full of turbulence. You just never know what kind of weather you will get in equator regions. This unpredictable weather has contributed to a lot of accidents and incidents in DRC. And unfortunately, most of them being fatal.
But wait, Jonathan, what about the neighboring countries? They are also in the equator region like Uganda and Kenya, but they are not bothered by the weather and are relatively safe.
Good question. So why are a lot of crashes in DRC connected to the unpredictable weather? Well, this brings us to the first factor, pilot errors. I think we can all agree that pilot error is not exclusive to DRC. Pilot error has occurred in all countries around the world, but around 80%, if not more, of all accidents and incidents have been caused by pilot errors in DRC. Now, with the unpredictable weather system in DRC, plus really basic errors caused by pilots, you get pilots losing control on landing and then blaming the weather and saying,
"Oh yeah, the weather was really terrible."
Pilots ignoring minimum altitudes and crashing on houses or forests and other stuff. Pilots trying to take off when overloaded, overrunning the runway, crashing into cities and towns. Pilots trying to fly visually in bad weather when they are supposed to fly with instruments, ending up on the side of hills or mountains. A little phenomenon called control flight into terrain. Pilots flying unstable approaches resulting to stalls or overrunning the runway. I can keep on going as there are many examples of pilot errors in action in DRC. Now, the remaining estimated 20% of accidents and incidents are not caused by pilot error. They are caused by the next factor, mechanical failures. Well, this factor is self-explanatory. From gears not extending leading to belly landings, from engine failures leading to emergency landings, from hydraulic failures leading to, you guessed it, emergency landings. I can go on naming all failures, but you get the point. Thankfully, not all mechanical failures are fatal, surprisingly. But I will go back on the first factor and state that due to pilot error, almost all emergency landings are always rushed, and so not all emergency landings are properly executed. And unfortunately, these are the ones that lead to fatalities. Now, what is the reason behind these mechanical failures? This brings us to the next factor, aircraft age. Now, I don't know if it's an obsession of air transport companies in DRC, but for some reason they love old planes, especially old Soviet aircraft. I know that finances plays a big role in this, but in all countries, there's at least one company that has brand new aircrafts. Sadly, the majority of them are leased aircraft, meaning that they are borrowed aircraft. This explains a bit why a lot of them get mechanical failures while in service. But DRC is not the only country using old aircraft on lease. So what's the difference? Well, this brings us to the fourth factor. At this point, a normal person would ask this question.
So why are there about 20% of mechanical failure-related accidents and incidents, and around 80% of pilot error-related accidents and incidents in DRC?
A simple question. Mechanical failure and pilot errors are given the opportunity to manifest thanks to the two following factors. Number 4, DRC's aviation infrastructure. DRC is a giant land, and so it needs a lot of infrastructure to keep its aviation sector going. When it comes to airport, DRC has a lot of them. It has around 60 IATA-approved airports and more than 131 aerodromes in DRC. Statistics show that the DRC comes in second place in Africa for having a lot of aerodromes, with South Africa coming in first place. However, the majority of them just have dirt strips or grass strips and the bare minimum infrastructure for the aerodromes to function. Some airports approved by IATA do have at least somewhat of the standard aviation infrastructure, like Njili Airport, Lubumbashi Airport, Bangkok Airport, and Goma Airport. But a lot of them lack some crucial equipment that guarantee safety. When we remove our eyes from airports and look at the giant airspace of DRC, we find one big problem. This massive giant airspace doesn't have something called an air route surveillance radar, which is basically a radar that shows the actual position of all air traffic in the giant airspace. As a result of not having an air route surveillance radar in DRC airspace, we get news like,
Justin, the DRC Aviation Authority have reported that an aircraft failed to land at its destination airport 3 hours ago. A search and rescue team has been deployed.
And then after 1 week of waiting, we get,
Justin, the wreckage of the aircraft that went missing last week in DRC has been found, and unfortunately no survivors were found.
I guarantee you that if DRC had an air route surveillance radar, a lot of people will still be alive today somehow. Putting our eyes back at airports, remember that weather plays a major role in all accidents and incidents, and unfortunately, the majority of all airports lack key infrastructure to give accurate weather reports. In DRC, weather reports are not always accurate and updated due to the lack of some weather equipment. At some aerodromes, if not almost all of them, weather reporting is usually done by site and usually by someone who is not qualified to do so. And unfortunately, ISAT can never give the full accurate weather data. So when you combine bad weather reporting and pilot error together, you get yourself a list of accidents and incidents. One of the most crucial equipment not in DRC that could have prevented a lot of crashes is something called a terminal Doppler weather radar. It is a great tool because it gives air traffic controllers up-to-date and live data reports on precipitation or rain and wind activities. Without it, pilots never know the true activities of the clouds and winds at their destination airport until they arrive there. A perfect example of this was the 2011 crash of United Nations Flight 834. The aircraft was performing a flight from Bangkok Airport to Njili Airport. When the aircraft was about to land at Njili Airport, it encountered a microburst on final, a phenomenon that has a lot of winds pushing down, and unfortunately, they are only detectable with a terminal Doppler weather radar. Since Njili Airport doesn't have a terminal Doppler weather radar, without the knowledge of the microburst and with a lot of pilot errors, the aircraft went straight into the microburst, making it fall to the ground and crash. So why is DRC's aviation infrastructure so poor? And we still don't know why pilot errors and mechanical failures are high in DRC. Well, the next factor will tell us why. 5. The A.A.C. A.A.C is the abbreviation of DRC's Civil Aviation Authority, and for me, all blame goes to them. Since DRC is part of ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization, it is up to the A.A.C following ICAO standards to enforce all regulations, rules, limits, and other stuff to aircraft operators in DRC and to upgrade the aviation infrastructure in DRC. The reason why we get so many pilot errors, mechanical failures, related accidents, and incidents is because the A.A.C doesn't enforce safe piloting standards to operators. The A.A.C doesn't enforce maintenance of aircraft and bring in a culture of regular maintenance. And A.A.C doesn't upgrade DRC's dying aviation infrastructure. So, with a governing body that does not promote safety standards on a regular basis, aircraft operators trying to make a few profit will always take risks, especially on maintenance cost, but the biggest being on pilot training and monitoring. And unfortunately, those risks come with deadly consequences. At this point, I know someone would ask me this question.
So why is the Civil Aviation Authority like this?
Well, I don't want to get in trouble by giving names, but do you remember when I said this? But the biggest of them all, the clear and obvious corruption that goes on daily without stopping in DRC. Yeah, unfortunately, corruption is evident in the A.A.C, and anything that has corruption in it will never be safe or truth-coming. A clear example I see is on investigation of accidents and incidents. An estimate of 80 to 90% of all accidents and incidents have never been investigated. Why is that? Well, when I see the word corruption, I think of only one scenario.
Justin, an aircraft in DRC belonging to Hewabora has just crashed at Goma Airport. Reports say it was a 30-year-old DC-9 that failed to take off and speculate that it might have been due to bad weather.
Alright, you. Go and investigate the pilot, and you. Go and take the black boxes, if there are even there.
Hello, boss.
Yes, hello. Who are you?
I'm the CEO of Hewabora, and I believe you are the head investigator, correct?
Yes, I am. What do you want?
I just wanted to know what you think the cause of the crash is so far.
Well, it was clearly not bad weather. I am 100% certain that it is either 40% maintenance negligence of UDC-9 or 60% pilot error, so you better start preparing money to pay the victims.
My boss, don't say that. What about I give you and you just put this whole investigation under the rug and just say a puddle on the runway caused the crash?
My friend, is too little for this favor. And I will consider saying the probable cause is that one of the engine or maybe both suffered a loss of power during takeoff after the aircraft passed through a puddle.
You got yourself a deal. Thank you.
Alright. I will say next week, so let me act as if I'm doing an investigation.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Justin, last week, an aircraft of Hewabora crashed while trying to take off at Goma, killing 40 people. Investigators have released a statement stating that the probable cause of the crash is the loss of power on one of the engine during takeoff after the aircraft passed through a puddle. Shocking indeed.
Well, this is just my idea, but I hope I'm wrong. But at the same time, it's hard for me to convince myself that I'm wrong because, as I stated, 80 to 90% of all accidents and incidents have never been investigated. By the way, that crash really happened, and that probable cause is what is officially said. Anyways, I will stop here because I don't want to get into trouble with people from the A.A.C. So, those are the 5 factors of why aviation in DRC is dangerous, which makes it one of the worst in the world. But thankfully, over the past 9 years since 2015, there are signs of improvements. Well, kinda. As of 2024, it has been a good year. There hasn't been any crash. Well, is what I wanted to say, but this year, 7 accidents and 2 incidents have already taken place as of the recording of this video. Thankfully, but also unfortunately, only 1 person has died. I really hope aviation in DRC improves so that one day I can proudly talk about it. But as it is now, I feel like everyone is just there to take in the money and doesn't care about making it prosperous and safe. Because I tell you, money is not an issue. Well, it kinda is, but the amount that goes into the aviation sector in DRC is not what the people get. But like I said, I hope for the best. Because Congolese are hardworking people and Congolese are certainly capable of doing better than how it is. They just need to use their heads for once and remove the word profit from their heads. Anyways, thank you for watching this video on the aviation in DRC. Have something to say or to debate? Let's talk in the comment section. By the way, my name is Jonathan, and on this channel we fly, investigate, and we learn everything that is aviation related. If you like this kind of videos, then you are at the right place. And our channel is usually focused on DRC Aviation. Interested to learn more about DRC Aviation? Then check out my video on the airport of Goma. Until next time, bye.